White people invented race to justify their oppression of the African people and their descendants, as well as to justify their mistreatment of the indigenous American tribes. So racism is always the aggressor. Race-based violence starts and ends with white people. Entirely different is bias. It's possible for a black person to be biased against a white person. It's defensive bias, though, because again, white people started and continued it to present day. So a black person not liking a white person or not trusting a white person on the basis that they're white is not racism. It's defensive bias based on 400 years of dehumanization and history and trauma that has not been atoned for. No reparations have been made. No apologies have been given by the majority of white people. Most white people will tell you, I didn't do it, so I'm not responsible. I've never been racist to a black person. Why do they hate me on the basis of my skin color? That's racist. No, that's smart. Every time black people have tried to create their own communities, white people have come in and ruined it and destroyed it. We've stolen everything they've ever tried to build for themselves. Black creativity and culture is the most plagiarized and least accredited phenomenon in the world. To this day, everyone steals from the black community and their creativity and their artists. It's not TikTok slang, it's AAVE, it's Ebonics. You look stupid. It's not yours. It's not ours, it's theirs. It's not ours, it's theirs.
One of the things that I do is I try to help people get a picture of what I mean by racism. So tell me how it is. The first category is white racism, then we'll deal with black racism. So white racism. Tell me the ways in which white racism adversely impacts the lives of black people. Just what are the ways that white racism can adversely impact the lives of black people as a group? What are some of those ways? I'm sorry? Power, but how is that defined specifically? Education, okay. I'm sorry? Economically, employment. What else? Housing, what else? Policing. Why are we here today? Healthcare, okay. Now, we could actually kind of grow that list. Now we're going to move over to black racism. Tell me the ways in which black racism adversely impacts the lives of white people as an entire group. Thank you. The reason why you become silent, there's one that always comes up, and that's fear. White people are afraid of black people. They are afraid of us. And it's a very interesting thing because black people know it. We know white people are afraid. But you have to start getting into the psychology. What are you afraid of? Why are you afraid? But it's an interesting dynamic. Now, also you see the difference in what racism is, do you not? Racism implies you have not just prejudice, but the power to do something with that prejudice. Now, I don't like you, not only that, but I'm going to control whether you can get, I may say I hate you. I hate white people. I hate them. It's not going to change you getting that, loan when you go to the bank. I can hate you all the way to the bank. Not going to change. Do you see the difference? That whereas white racism says, not only do I not like you, but I'm going to change the impact of where you can live. I'm going to determine with that racism where your powers are. You following me? And I'm talking about as a group, not an individual, because people said, I remember when my uncle didn't. I'm not talking about your uncle. I'm talking about the whole group. I'm not talking about an incident. That's the difference.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Agent Stories. It is always important to reminisce and think about one of the most greatest things that God has ever given us as black people, and that is black resilience. This is something that some people will want to have it, but they can never have it. And this explains so much as to why they have tried to put black people down. They have tried to make you not succeed. The main purpose of racism, the main purpose of creating race and racism was to make black people remain where they were, because they knew very well that if white people and black people were given the same opportunity, we will definitely see black people taking up spaces that will make white people feel some type of way. And as a result, these people came with racism. And racism, they used racism to divide black people from white people, giving white people privileges that black people could never have. Now, this is where Dr. Joy DeGray comes from. So for those who don't know Dr. Joy DeGray is a social worker and a scholar known for her work on post-traumatic slave syndrome, that is PTSS. And she argues that racism in the United States cannot be understood simply as an individual prejudice. And in her analysis, racism developed as a system designed to maintain social, political, and economic power after centuries of slavery. So, when the Gray discusses fear, she is generally referring to a historical fear among some members of the dominant racial group that black advancement could challenge the existing power structures. And she argues that this fear helped justify policies and practices that resisted black opportunities even after slavery formally ended. So all this culminates down to the fear that these folks have towards black people, and that's why they will never give black people the same opportunity. And that's why they will never give black people the same opportunity as they will give their own. So this shows you that there is a looming fear towards these people. And this is what Dr. Joy DeGray is about to discuss. So it is really crazy that we are talking about this. Racism in the face of a black person and racism in the face of a white person is not the same. We are totally seeing different group of people coming from different backgrounds, having a different experience about racism. The way a black person views racism is not the same as the way a white person views racism. And I'll explain. This is because we have two sides of American reality. The American reality for a white person is not the same with the American reality of a black person. When you talk about racism, it comes from a traumatic point from a black person, and that's why when you try to explore other works of Dr. Joy DeGray, you're gonna be finding he talked about post-traumatic slave syndrome. This is a concept that he was trying to discuss, that racism never just ended. There were enormous things, there were enormous effects that were psychological that it left to the black community. So, brothers and sisters, while you're watching this video, I want you to think about it. I want you to think about it deeply. How has racism, even though maybe you are currently not facing it, but it has some effects like that are psychological that can still be affecting you. So I want you to tell me what you'll think about this. In the meantime, if you're watching me for the first time, I'm asking you to please subscribe to the channel, join the membership, and really get to what I can offer you. For those who are always coming back, watching my videos, subscribing, liking, man, I'm really grateful for all the support that you'll give me. But until then, I want to switch this video, and then I'll be back. I'll be giving my thoughts and commentaries in regards to this. So let's get into it.
Anything that robs us of our humanity is a danger to everyone. And that is what's going on with people of African descent all over the world, because not only did it get done here, but who did we tell the entire world? We told these people don't deserve any value. Everyone wants to be American. Not y'all. But when we go, I literally go to countries all over the world. America sets the standard, and thank God for what happened later. Let's move forward. So a lot of people start saying, well, y'all got free, right? Y'all are free. Everything's fine. Because see, whenever you talk about post-traumatic slave syndrome, people get locked there. So there's a myth that after slavery ended, the playing field was leveled. Was it? Remember, all the lynchings occurred after slavery. That wasn't during, after slavery. So you had black sharecropping. Now, we didn't get a lot of black history in our schooling. I have 4 degrees, and 3 of them advanced degrees. Never did I get black history. I got about 2 pages of black history, and one page was a picture. And there was a picture of the little folks with the cabin. You probably saw the same picture. It's a little cabin, the little guy on the porch with the banjo, little children running, frolicking about, eating watermelon, right? Everybody happy? And we certainly need little Mary and little Johnny to believe that they were happy. The slaves were happy people. And they had a nice place to live. Because we couldn't have them feeling cognitive what? Not little Mary. She can't start questioning what Grandpa did. So I want you to see this, because those are leftover slave quarters. He's a sharecropper. So now let's go back and take a look at sharecropping. Now these are folks that were slaves, no longer slaves, decided I'm going back to be a sharecropper on the same plantation that I was enslaved. Why would you do that? Let's move forward. Here's why. Because when you did try to leave, and you go north, because you're free. I want you to go north now. I live in Oregon, right? That's where I live. Here we go. No free Negro mulatto not residing in this state at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall come reside or be within the state or hold any real estate or make any contracts or maintain any suit therein. And the Legislative Assembly shall provide by penal laws for the removal by public officers of all such Negroes and mulattoes and for their effectual exclusion from the state, and for the punishment of persons who shall bring them into the state or employ or harbor them. This was repealed November 3rd, 1926. My father was alive. Section 6 said, if any free Negro mulatto shall fail to quit the country as required by this act, if guilty upon trial, shall receive upon his or her back not less than 20, no more than 39. We'll beat you. That if any free Negro mulatto shall fail to quit the country within the term of 6 months after receiving such stripes, he or she shall again receive the same punishment once every 6 months until he or she shall quit the country. We're going to beat you till you leave. But you're free. The playing field is leveled. Pull yourself up from your bootstraps. Are you following me? So he went back to the plantation. Let's go back. He went back to the plantation to be a sharecropper because that's the only place he could live. But he can't read or write because it was illegal to educate a slave. So I'm illiterate. I go back and I say to the slave owner, past slave owner, okay, now I'm coming back to work for a fair wage because I'm free. And the slave owner says, sure, you can come back. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to advance you seed, tools, and a mule. In other words, I am going to give you that grant that you want. And we're going to let you work with that. And at the end of the year, we'll settle up. Well, the grant's never enough, is it? And so at the end of the year, he's found owing. And what must he do to pay off that debt? He's got to work it off, yes? And his children have to work it off, yes? That's called debt servitude, or another form of slavery. But you all are free. What are you whining about? Let's move forward. Move forward. So, well, can we lease them? Now, everybody wants to know big issue. You have overrepresentation here. Guess how I know? Overrepresentation in the criminal justice system has its etiology. It was big business then. It's big business now. You're going to get free labor one way or another. New slavery is imprisonment. Well, let's see. Why was this? It was so successful. By the mid-1898, nearly 3/4 of Alabama's total state revenue came directly from this institution. Well, of course, I wanted to do research on what they did because they're free. But now we're arresting them at alarming rates. And for what? 12 years for vagrancy, loitering, startling a white woman, looking menacingly at a white woman. That's what they got 10, 12, 15 years for. And many of them, 25%, died under convict lease, more than during slavery, because there were no protections, because now we have another label to justify our behavior towards them. And what's their new label? Well, after all, they're convicts. They're criminals. Don't they deserve it? Do you see what I'm saying? So when did it end, is the question. Move forward. You all heard about Katrina, yes? Yeah. See, I was there. My family's from Louisiana. I went to the 9th Ward. Sometimes you can't pay attention to what the news says. It's important to actually go eyeball what's going on, which was very interesting because it was one of the most horrific events I'd ever seen and probably will ever see in my life. Well, black folks were just simply treated differently. Did you notice that? Here's the good news about Katrina. Everybody noticed it. So all the rest of the world where we learned, send us your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, your democracy, your equality. They said, what happened with that Katrina thing? All that stuff y'all talked about. Well, let me read this. This is from Associated Press. taken straight from the newspaper. In the front, actually, the top part here is actually a woman, but they think it's a man. Anyway, it says, a young man walks through chest-deep floodwater after looting a grocery store in New Orleans on Tuesday, August 30th, 2005. Same body of water down here, excuse me. 2 residents wade through chest-deep water after finding bread and soda from a local grocery store. Now, same event, same water. White people, black people. We've told you what you see now. That removes your what? Dissonance, because these people can't be perceived as looting. They're white people. White people don't loot. Now, the truth of the matter is, I don't care what any of them are doing. It doesn't matter, but I'm going to still the social conscience by letting you know, don't forget, this is a looter. Matter of fact, what you last heard was that they were looters and rapists. Did you not? So don't they deserve it? That wasn't back in, I don't know, slavery though, was it? Now we're going to kind of move into operationalizing that to look at what is it, how do we begin to connect that behavior, that history to what we're dealing with and what you're dealing with right now and what we're seeing. And very often people say, well, is everything post-traumatic slave syndrome? Obviously that would, trivialize all the work. We cannot lay squarely on the shoulders of post-traumatic all the problems that we see, nor can we place all the problems squarely on the shoulders of white people or any of the above. So hopefully we won't digress into anything that is that foolish in terms of a discussion. Because, that's another thing that happens in terms of trying to deal with the pushback around this. Then we move into extremes, and it tends to dilute the realities that are going on. So hopefully we're way beyond all that. Well, now she's saying everything is post-traumatic. No, I'm not. And most of my work, my background is really in the field, doing work in the community and grassroots. That's where my training was in terms of my clinical work. And just, the fact that I've always been, this work started on the ground. It didn't start here. Matter of fact, I got the attention of places like Oxford and Harvard and, the Ivy League and major institutions, even the FBI, but those were things that happened after I started doing the work on the grassroots level. And so for me, my commitment is to healing. So this is not an exercise in some kind of broad intellectual esoteric. It's really about how do we then take this information and help a person extricate themselves from behavior that they've learned and or been socialized to believe, black and white and everyone in the middle that has been affected by this. What do we do? So this is kind of looking at the contemporary kind of reflection of the trauma, which is white supremacy and terrorism. That continues. We see that on a daily basis in the United States as well as here. This book is called Breaking Rank by Norm Stamper. Norm Stamper is a 34-year police veteran. He was the chief of police for the cities of San Diego and Seattle. This is a white man, wrote this book called Breaking Rank, and he really did. So all I can tell you is he broke rank. I've been trying to meet Norm. Norm travels quite a bit, and he gets a considerable amount of death threats because of what he's done. But he talked about, and this is contemporary, and remember, that's what we're looking at. How does it reflect itself today? I've heard some police officers refer to prostitute slayings or to the slayings of blacks as misdemeanor murders, employing an unofficial code for them, NHI, which means no human involved. Now, these are on telephone calls. These are on calls that you hear on police officers speaking, hey, what do you have? Well, we have an NHI. We have no human involved. It's a black person killed. Do you see what I'm saying? Again, the dehumanization reflecting itself in just their casual involvement with one another. San Diego cops confessed to a myriad other acts of discrimination, including additionally dehumanizing the references to blacks on a radio call, Justin 1113 nigger. 1113 is a code for an injured animal. How many people think they understand what racism is? Show of hands. Come on, you think you know. I'm not suggesting I know. I just have a couple of definitions that kind of came to me as I thought about it. How many people think there are white racists? that there are white racists out there? How many think there are black racists out there? Okay. Now, this is an interesting thing because this becomes important as we begin to define concepts. Now, I do that. I usually define concepts all the way. But one of the things that I do is I try to help people get a picture of what I mean by racism. So tell me how it is. I'm going to, first category is white racism, then we'll deal with black racism. So white racism. Tell me the ways in which white racism adversely impacts the lives of black people. Just what are the ways that white racism can adversely impact the lives of black people as a group? What are some of those ways? I'm sorry? Power, but how is that defined specifically? Education, okay. I'm sorry? Economically, employment. What else? Housing, what else? Policing. Why are we here today? Healthcare, okay. Now, we can actually kind of grow that list. Now we're going to move over to black racism. Tell me the ways in which black racism adversely impacts the lives of white people as an entire group. Thank you. The reason why you become silent, there's one that always comes up, and that's fear. White people are afraid of black people. They are afraid of us. And it's a very interesting thing because black people know it. We know white people are afraid. But you have to start getting into the psychology. What are you afraid of? Why are you afraid? But it's an interesting dynamic. Now, also you see the difference in what racism is, do you not? Racism implies you have not just prejudice, but the power to do something with that prejudice. Now, I don't like you, not only that, but I'm going to control whether you can get, I may say I hate you. I hate white people. I hate them. It's not going to change you getting that, loan when you go to the bank. I can hate you all the way to the bank. Not going to change. Do you see the difference? That whereas white racism says, not only do I not like you, but I'm going to change the impact of where you can live. I'm going to determine with that racism where your powers are. You following me? And I'm talking about as a group, not an individual, because people said, I remember when my uncle didn't. I'm not talking about your uncle. I'm talking about the whole group. I'm not talking about an incident. That's a difference. But white people are afraid. So let's get into how this fear impacts criminal justice. Because if white people in this room are afraid of black people, guess who else is afraid of black people? Only they have guns. So now let's look at what he said. Simply put, white cops are afraid of black men. We don't talk about it. We pretend it doesn't exist. We claim color blindness. We say white officers treat black men the same way they treat white men, but that's a lie. And here's a big one. In fact, the bigger, the darker the black man, the greater the fear. Any big black men in here? You got a big old bullseye on you, even if you got the suit on. And it's the truth, because statistics bear it out. The African community knows this. Hell, most whites know it. Yet, even though it's essential, if not the defining ingredient in the makeup of police racism, white cops won't admit it to themselves or to others. He goes on to talk about actually learning it in the academy. Norm Stamper, he told on everybody. He had folks indicted. He now lives in a cabin on a mountain somewhere in the San Juan Islands. That's where he lives. Nobody knows where he lives because he knows they're coming after him, and they have. This is a statement from the book also. Race and class discrimination are all too real in every phase of the criminal justice system, from arrest to sentencing. Impoverished black defendants, and this is going to sound familiar to you, are far more likely to wind up on death row than richer middle-class whites, or the 3,000, and of the 3,700 inmates now awaiting execution nationwide, 43% are African American. Black defendants are not accorded the same due process rights as whites. Their cases are not given the same scrutiny and consideration afforded to white defendants. Not now, not ever, not in this country. This is what the man said. It was dismal. But he doesn't believe it's possible in the current system. So what we have to realize is we need to be realistic about that. So what I have to do is teach my sons how to navigate this, do I not? Doesn't matter what I think and, oh, baby, you know, we are the world. No, this is real. You do have a bullseye on you. When you're in the elevator with the only white woman there, and you're the big black man, she's clutching her purse and she's worried. That's a reality. And if you startle her too much, it used to mean you get lynched. Matter of fact, I think she could scream rape now and you'd get taken down. Now, this is interesting because this has to do with women. You know, my father used to say if a white man has a cold, a black man has pneumonia. And if a black man has pneumonia, a black woman has cancer. It just kind of figures out that way. In 1986, on-duty California Highway Patrol Officer Craig Payer strangled a San Diego State University student named Kara Knott and threw her body off a 70-foot bridge. Motive, she'd resisted his sexual advances. Now let's go back and understand that, and this is an interesting thing. I worked with adolescent and adult male and female prostitutes for 5 years. I don't want you to get that confused. I'm not an ex-ho. I've actually had people say, gosh, she's come along, you know, she used to be. She's done so well. So somehow when I say that, people think I've never been in the life. Okay, I work with adolescent, adult, male and female prostitutes as a case manager counselor. Okay, and during that time that I worked with folks, it was very interesting to see the perspectives and the behaviors and the attitudes that people had about prostitutes. I mean, when folks want to be, if you want to start off as a serial killer, just go kill the prostitutes. Nobody cares. They don't even CSI don't investigate the prostitute slayings, right? But when we begin to see what's been happening with particularly women of color, you know, just historically, women of color have been fodder for white men. Now, what started in the backwoods or in the cabin with the slaves, it never went away, you know. And I want to speak to this because this is a tough one to swallow too. But imagine they did a study back in the 80s, and they asked men across the board, cross races, if you could get away with sexually assaulting a woman, raping a woman, in other words, and there's no possible way that you'll get, you know, penalized for it. Do you ever get, how many of you would consider doing it? This is just regular Joe, go to work with the kids. 70%. 70. Said if I could do it, I would do it. Imagine being able to do that for a couple hundred years with impunity. Imagine, you don't have to worry about, you know, you talk about pedophilia and all that. Imagine being able to buy that. And then you could beat it to death too and get another one. I know it's tough to wrap your head around, but what happens to an appetite created like that? Where you could rape a black woman anytime you wanted to, and it wasn't considered rape because she was promiscuous. Hundreds of years. We're not talking about a few years. Hundreds of years. Protected by the law. No moral. You could go to church. It was all good. Where do you think that went after slavery ended? It didn't go away because guess who's the number one? You got folks who are pimping the women, and then you got the ones that are buying them. And who's buying them? Same middle-aged white males between 35 and 60, married with children. 5 years I work with them. These are the Johns. Still are the Johns. And still are getting hold of some of that black body. Are you following me? This is really important. No, it just mutated into something else. So now we have to figure out a way within the legal perspective to deal with these women who are out of control. My cautious guess is that 5% of America's cops are on the prowl for women. Women, you need to get concerned. 5% of any police department. In other words, there are folks who become police officers because they're predatory. That's why. Think about it. We know where pedophiles go, don't we? You go where there are children. Thank you. So we got to understand police officers, plenty of them are twisted. And I've worked for the last 20 years with police officers. Trust me. I'm always concerned about someone that deliberately wants a gun, aside from the short man. In a department the size of Seattle's, that's 63 police officers. In San Diego, 145. In New York City, 2 20,000. The average patrol cop makes anywhere from 10 to 20 unsupervised contacts a shift. If he's on the make, chances are a predatory cop will find you or your wife, your partner, your daughter, your sister, your mother, your friend. That's in general. And you see, you get a freebie when you have a person of color because they have no rights. It is not hard to understand why people of color, the poor, and younger Americans did not and do not look upon the police as, quote, theirs. Compare and contrast. Are the police as an institution known for their protection of the innocent against deception, or do they deceive the innocent? Do the police protect the weak against oppression or intimidation, or do they oppress and intimidate the very people they've sworn to protect? Again, we're not talking about anybody that just fell off a truck. We're talking about a 34-year police veteran who went back, by the way, to get his PhD. Now, this was a study I did, the research I did. Now, let me explain kind of the basis of this research. 200 African-American male youth, 100 of whom are incarcerated, right? 100 of whom are not, but are from the same neighborhood. That was my the group that I was working with. So one of the things that I wanted to do over here on the right side, what you see is my dependent variable, what I'm trying to predict. And what I'm trying to predict is the use of violence. So what I discovered was the most significant predictor of African American adolescent violence. When I did the multiple, in other words, I put all the variables together to see out what was most significant. The baseline variables of witnessing and victimization, we already know they're going to fall out because they're baseline. We already know that. Was respect. The most important predictor, respect. Think about that. How do you get respect as African-American male, period, but a male youth 16 in your society? How does he get respect? Got to get it, though, because he's not going to roll up in a corner and bawl and die somewhere. He needs to get respect. And as black people, I say this all the time out in here, that we can ill afford to swallow whole what is called cultural. We can ill afford to swallow that because there's poison in the cookies. And the only way to get the poison out of the cookies is not someone from the outside looking in, but those who are living in this to be able to look at themselves and assess it with a level of dignity, a level of safety that perpetuates a sense of well-being and healing. Thank you so much.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. Again, I'm your host and presenter Agent Stories. It is always a great time. It is always a good time having you around so that we can get to talk about all these important concepts that somehow or somewhere they are always trying us not to learn much about the true history and what really happened. Now, brothers and sisters, Dr. Joy DeGrave emphasizes that slavery created enormous wealth for the United States while simultaneously denying black people access to education, property ownership, and political power. Now, get to understand that after emancipation, many formerly enslaved people sought to build independent communities, businesses, and schools. However, according to Dr. Joy DeGrave, in her analysis, you listen to her saying that efforts at black advancement were often met with resistance because some white Americans fears losing economic and social dominance. So this fear was frequently expressed through laws, violence, and discriminatory practices rather than openly admitting concerns about competition. It was all about the fear. All about the fear that they had about black people. So they tried to bring policies, put sanctions, restrictions that made black people not to do their businesses or do things that would make them successful. Secondly, Dr. Joy DeGrave points to the development of racial ideologies that portrayed black people as inferior. She argues that these beliefs were not merely personal opinions, but served as a political purpose. If a society could convince itself that black people were naturally less capable, then an equal treatment could be justified. So in this framework, racism became a tool that allowed inequality to continue while presenting its normal or deserved rather than a deliberate system of exclusion. Thirdly, she also discusses how black success has historically been viewed with suspicion or hostility in certain contexts. Now, throughout the American history, there have been examples of prosperous black communities facing attacks or discrimination. DeGray argues that these incidents reflected anxiety about what black achievement represented. Successful black communities challenged racist narratives and demonstrated that barriers to advancements were largely created by social conditions rather than innate differences. I hope you get to understand that. Although black people had gone through difficult times, after emancipation of slavery, they were still jealous. They still feared black success. Talk about the Tulsa, Oklahoma. Talk about the Black Wall Street. They all went and put them down. They destroyed everything good that black people had. They did it, right? My fourth argument is that Dr. Joy DeGray frequently highlights the psychological dimensions of racism, and she argues that centuries of racial hierarchy created fears that persisted long after slavery ended. Some individuals came to associate black empowerment with a threat to their own status. Rather than viewing equality as a benefit for society or as a whole, they interpreted gains for black Americans as losses for themselves. The zero-sum thinking, according to DeGray, contributed to resistance against civil rights reforms and social change. She also examines the role of segregation in maintaining racial inequality. Laws and customs that separated black and white communities often restricted access to equal education, housing, employment, and public resources. DeGray argues that segregation was not simply about physical separation. Right? It was about controlling access to opportunity by limiting where black people could live, work, learn, and the system reduced the likelihood that they could compete on equal footing. And that's really sad, but that's the truth. Dr. Gray's concept of post-traumatic slave syndrome explores how the legacy of slavery continues to affect communities across generations. She argues that trauma experienced under slavery and reinforced through later discrimination created lasting social and psychological consequences. And at the same time, she contends that the dominant society often failed to acknowledge the depth of historical trauma, making it more difficult to address the inequalities that resulted from it. She also notes that racial progress has often been followed. Black racial progress have also been followed by backlash. After Reconstruction, the Civil Rights Movement, and other periods of black advancements, new barriers frequently emerged, and DeGray interprets this pattern as evidence that some institutions adapted in ways that preserved existing hierarchies, even when overt forms of discrimination became less acceptable. In her view, the form of racism changed, but many underlying power dynamics remained. Dr. DeGray also discusses how stereotypes can function as a means of social control. Negative portrayals of black people in media, politics, public disclosure can influence how society view black communities. She argues that such stereotypes help justify unequal treatment by shifting attention away from structural barriers and placing blame on individuals. This process can make systemic inequality appear natural rather than historically produced. And also the ninth reason is that She contends that one of the most significant fears underlying racism is the fear of confronting history honestly, acknowledging the full impact of slavery, segregation, and discrimination. All this we know that requires recognizing how institutions benefited from those systems. And it is crazy that still some of them won't even believe that this is something that it's happening or something that happened. So, brothers and sisters, please let me know what you all think about this, right? Just let me know what you all think about this. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Ejidek Stories, but until then, I'm hoping to see you on my next video. Until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salute.